The chaos, where order meets chaos. The chaos, where order meets chaos.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm John Beta, and this is The Chaos. Let me start with a conversation. A few weeks ago, after some beers, I was talking with a friend. He's a doctor, serious guy, experienced, not easily impressed. He also is an artist, plays and sings, and he was very skeptical to AI. Seeing it as a threat for music talent. But just a week before we meet, he had just completed a course on artificial intelligence in medicine. And he was excited. Not in a hype way, not in a this will replace us way, but in a deeply professional way. He was telling me how AI is now being used to analyze X-rays, CT scans, and all of those medics examinations. Millions of images. Millions. And these systems are trained on datasets so large that no human brain could ever process that volume of visual information in a lifetime. We're talking about deep learning models, trained to detect lung nodules, early stage cancer, subtle brain anomalies. Some studies published in journals like Nature Medicine show AI, systems performing at the same level, and sometimes above, experience radiologists in very specific detection tasks, not because they're smarter, but because they never get tired, they never blink, they never rush to finish a shift. And that fascinated him, because in medicine, fatigue is real, cognitive overload is real, backlogs are real. In Portugal, hospitals are overwhelmed, radiology departments are flooded with imaging requests, and here comes AI, not as a replacement, but as a triage partner. Imagine this, an AI system pre-screens thousands of scans overnight, flags the suspicious ones, prioritizes high-risk cases. When the radiologist walks in the next morning, the urgent cases are already highlighted, time saved, lives potentially saved. But it doesn't stop there. AI is also being used to analyze patient histories. Electronic health records, lab results, genetic markers, medication interactions. It can cross-correlate thousands of variables and detect patterns that would take humans days, weeks, or would simply go unnoticed. It can predict the probability of readmission, estimate complication risks, suggest personalized treatment paths in oncology. We're moving from standardized medicine to data-informed personalized medicine. And that's extraordinary. And my friend told me something that I took note. I seize patterns we might miss. And this happened, not because doctors aren't competent, but because humans have limits. We are biological processors, AI is statistical scale at machine speed, and here's something important. In controlled clinical studies, AI systems have reduced false negatives in certain cancer screenings. False negatives. That's not just data, that's early detection, that's time gained, that's survival probability shifted. So yes, AI in medicine is powerful. It's not a gimmick, it's not a Silicon Valley fantasy. It's already here, already embedded, already assisting. And when you listen to someone on the front line of healthcare describing this, you feel it. You feel the respect, you feel the relief, you feel the potential. But then he said something else, and that's where this conversation really begins. In the course he took, two areas were consistently highlighted as the most advanced and the most impactful when it comes to AI: radiology and oncology. Because that's where data volume, pattern recognition, and consequence meet in the most dramatic way. That's where milliseconds and millimeters can change lives. In radiology, AI systems today are trained on vast datasets of labeled medical images, X-rays, CT scans, MREs, not thousands, hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions. These models are built using deep convolutional neural networks capable of detecting micropatterns in pixel structures that are statistically associated with pathology. A landmark 2020 study published in Nature showed that a deep learning system for breast cancer screening reduced both false positives and false negatives compared to radiologists working alone. Reduced both. That matters. False positives create anxiety, unnecessary biopsies, stress. False negatives delay diagnosis, delay treatment, reduce survival probability. AI in controlled environments improved both metrics. That's clinically significant. In lung cancer detection, AI models have demonstrated improved sensitivity in identifying small pulmonary nodules, especially in high-throughput settings where human fatigue becomes a factor. And fatigue is real. Radiologists often review hundreds of images per shift. Attention fluctuates. AI does not fluctuate. It evaluates every image with the same computational consistency. In oncology, the conversation becomes even more complex. AI is being used to analyze genomic sequencing data, to detect mutations, to correlate tumor markers with historical treatment responses across massive patient populations, to suggest treatment pathways based on probabilistic modeling. This is the backbone of precision medicine. Instead of treating the average patient, they can increasingly consider the molecular signature of a specific tumor. AI helps navigate that complexity. It can integrate thousands of variables in seconds. No human can do that alone. When he described all of this, there was genuine admiration in his voice, not blind optimism, but professional respect, because the potential is undeniable. Earlier detection, smarter prioritization of high-risk cases, reduced diagnostic backlog, more personalized therapeutic strategies, better probability alignment. In medicine, probability is not abstract. It is survival curves, it is risk percentages, it is life expectancy. But then he shifted the tone, and that's where the real insight emerged. He said, "It's powerful, but it must always be validated." Yes, validated. Because the course didn't just celebrate AI, it also emphasized its limitations. AI is only as good as the data it was trained on. If datasets lack diversity, models may underperform in underrepresented populations. If historical data contains systemic bias, that bias can be encoded into predictions. AI systems struggle with edge cases, rare conditions, unusual presentations, atypical combinations. They are exceptional at recognizing patterns they've seen before. They are weaker when confronted with what they have not. They calculate probability. They do not understand lived reality. There's also a documented psychological phenomenon called automation bias. It describes the human tendency to over-rely on automated decision systems, especially when those systems produce confident, clean, quantitative output. When a system says 87% probability, it feels authoritative. It feels objective. It feels safer than intuition. And the more accurate the system appears over time, the stronger that trust becomes. Gradually, subtly, conveniently, until validation becomes lighter, faster, less critical. He wasn't afraid of AI making errors. Errors can be detected, systems can be improved. His concern was more subtle. He was concerned about the erosion of clinical reasoning, the moment when the tool quietly becomes the authority, when doctors stop challenging outputs, when second opinions are replaced by algorithmic confidence, when clinical judgment weakens because the system already analyzed everything. That shift doesn't happen with a big announcement. It happens slowly, under pressure, under workload, under efficiency demands. AI can flag a suspicious lesion, but it cannot sit with the patient and explain uncertainty. It cannot weigh medical risk against personal values. It cannot sense hesitation in a voice. It cannot carry ethical responsibility. It cannot sign a diagnosis. Only a human can. Only a human should. And that's the line, the invisible but essential line. The line between assistance and authority. The line that must not disappear. Because if that line starts to blur in medicine, where the stakes are life and death, it can blur anywhere. If validation is essential in medicine, what happens in fields where the stakes feel less immediate, where no one is signing a diagnosis, where no one is carrying life or death responsibility, where the consequences are slower, less visible, more distributed? Because the mechanism is the same. AI systems today are embedded everywhere. In finance, risk scoring, fraud detection, credit decisions. In recruitment, CV filtering, candidate ranking. In law, contract analysis, case outcome prediction. In engineering, predictive maintenance models. In project management, forecasting tools, cost trend analysis, schedule risk simulations. In content creation, drafting, structuring, ideation. The surface changes, the structure doesn't. AI receives data, identifies patterns, calculates probability, suggests outputs, and the outputs look confident, clean, structured, precise. And precision creates comfort. We are naturally drawn to clarity. We prefer a quantified probability to ambiguous intuition. High risk, low likelihood, optimized, recommended. It feels controlled. It feels data-driven. It feels safer than uncertainty. But the psychological dynamic is identical to what we discussed in medicine. Automation bias does not disappear outside hospitals. If anything, it grows stronger in environments where the consequences are less immediately personal. Because when stakes feel lower, scrutiny weakens. When responsibility is distributed across teams, validation becomes diluted. And when decisions are collective, ownership becomes abstract. There's another subtle factor, efficiency pressure. AI makes us faster. It reduces cognitive load. It structures complexity. It shortens analysis time. And in modern organizations, speed is rewarded. Iteration cycles are compressed. Decisions are expected quickly. Under those conditions, validation can start to feel like friction. Questioning the system can feel like slowing down progress. Challenging the model can feel inefficient. So gradually, we validate less deeply. Not intentionally, but practically. And here's the paradox. The more accurate AI becomes over time, the more we trust it. The more we trust it, the less we challenge it. The less we challenge it, the more we risk blind spots. Not because the system is malicious, not because it is incompetent, but because no model captures full reality. Models simplify. Reality resists simplification. AI does not understand context shifts unless retrained. It does not sense political nuance. It does not perceive cultural tension. It does not feel strategic intent. It extrapolates from historical data. And history is not always a reliable predictor of disruption, especially in volatile environments, especially in innovation, especially in human systems. There's also a cognitive effect that is rarely discussed: skill atrophy. If a professional relies consistently on AI to structure analysis, draft conclusions, generate options, their independent analytical muscle may weaken, not dramatically, not overnight, but gradually, like any muscle unused. We become supervisors of outputs rather than originators of thought, operators rather than thinkers. And the transition feels smooth, because productivity remains high, the dashboard still updates, the reports still look good, the slides still make sense, the system still works, until one day it doesn't. And when it fails, we may discover that we no longer remember how to think without it. This is not about rejecting AI. It's not about fear. It's about recognizing a structural shift. AI increases capability, but capability without judgment is incomplete. Speed without reflection is fragile. Confidence without validation is risky. The danger is not AI replacing humans. The danger is humans quietly outsourcing responsibility. And that doesn't happen with dramatic announcements. It happens through convenience, through optimization, through trust, through repetition. If in medicine, the guardrail is explicit, legal, ethical, professional, in many other domains, that guardrail is informal, and informal guardrails are easier to erode. So the real question is not whether AI is powerful. We already know it is. The real question is, are we still thinking as deeply as we used to? Or are we simply approving what the system suggests? Now let me bring this closer, because this episode is also built with AI support. The structure, the clarity, the flow between ideas, the way complex themes are organized, AI helped me with that, and I'm not hiding it. Without AI, this podcast would be harder to sustain. Not because I lack ideas, not because I lack experience, but because I lack time. AI helps me compress thinking, bring order to chaos, accelerate preparation, refine language, polish transitions. It acts like a cognitive amplifier, and that's powerful. But here's the difference. It does not decide what I believe. It does not decide what I stand for. It does not carry my thoughts. It does not carry my responsibility. Every idea shared here is filtered through me. Every argument is validated by me. Every conclusion is mine. The system can propose. I dispose. That's the balance. The same balance my friend described in medicine. AI can analyze millions of scans, but a doctor signs the diagnosis. AI can draft this episode, but I stand behind every word. This is what human-led, AI-empowered truly means. Not anti-technology, not blind enthusiasm, but conscious partnership. AI expands capability, humans carry accountability, AI accelerates processing, Humans anchor judgment, AI calculates probability, humans define meaning. And maybe that's the future we should aim for. Not a world where AI replaces human thinking, but a world where AI raises the level of human thinking, where it removes friction, but not responsibility, where it enhances intelligence, but does not erode judgment. Because the real risk is subtle. It's not that AI becomes too intelligent, it's that we become less intentional. The danger is humans quietly outsourcing responsibility. And responsibility is not something we should ever automate. So perhaps the question isn't what can AI do for us, but rather, what must we never stop doing ourselves? Thinking, questioning, validating, deciding, owning. I'm John Baita, and this was Decars. Thank you. See you next week. And don't forget, bring order to your chaos.
The chaos, where order meets chaos. The chaos, where order meets chaos. The chaos, where order meets chaos. The chaos, where order meets chaos. The